Hello again. I want to congratulate you. Here it is, day 7 of our 2017 kickoff with a 7-day challenge to put you on a path to a more youthful brain and, as I like to say, an enlarged and an enriched life. So what I'd like to walk you through today is a little bit of looking back at where we've been in the last 7 days, and then I want to also offer some ideas about how to keep you on the path going forward. How does that sound? So one of the things that I have found both personally and with my clients that is so important to remember, and that is that it's never too late to begin again. So many times when I'm working with clients, regardless of what they're coming in to see me about, the assumption they bring is that their past is going to predict their future. They don't really have a sense that they're always in a position to begin making changes today that can lead to a better tomorrow. And if they do think that there is that kind of possibility, they're really at a loss as to how to bring that about. So let's keep in mind this idea that it's never too late to begin again, and then, as we've been doing over the last 6 days or so, and what we're doing again today, is really looking at the skills that it takes to make today the first day on a path to creating a different future. So I'd like to ask you at this point, after the last 6 days of different exercises and practices, some of them ones that I guide you through, some have been ones where I ask you to sit and reflect and to think about your own thoughts and feelings. At this point, how close are you to being able to get a picture of what your future looks like? Is that even beginning to take shape? Taking a look at what's possible for you. And then the most important next question is, what in the world is your role in shaping that future? At the end of the day, that's what's most important. That sense that you are in a position to influence the future in the direction that you'd like. So let me ask you a question with 3 possible answers. If you had to choose just one of these, which would you choose? Would it be to be blessed with good genes, to be blessed with good fortune, or to be blessed with the ability to practice good skills and habits? Well, I don't think any of us would mind at all if we were blessed with good genetics or with good fortune. But most of the research that I've looked into, both contemporary research and then research from ageless wisdom practices going back several thousand years, it's pretty clear that what stands out as an integral, necessary element in people living really full lives is that they have good habits. They have good skills that take care of their bodies, that take care of their minds and their emotions, that take care of their connections and their relationships with others. I hope these last days have really helped you to recognize that while good genes and good fortune are sure nice, that what we've begun to help you recognize is your ability to cultivate good skills and develop healthy practices, because in the end, that's what's going to carry you forward to be in a position to realize the vision for your future that you probably already are beginning to form. Now, early on, I think it was on day 1, I gave you a walkthrough on what I call the power of RE, R-E. You might remember that. And if you don't, go back to the content from day 1 and take a look at it again. Essentially, I find that this idea of re, which comes from the Latin word meaning again and again, is so important for me to remember and for me to, on a daily basis, teach my clients. This idea that we're never really in a good position to have something happen all at once that's going to make a big difference going forward. Our future is created by both our daily efforts to go forward and, unfortunately, the fact that many of those efforts fall short and we have to start over. We have to begin again. We have to redo. So I walked you through these different 10 forms of reviewing, refreshing your life, learning how to resolve or resolve problems, learning how to revitalize yourself, which to me is very much about bringing the energy that you need to make things happen to bear on what it is that you're wanting and seeking. We talked about the physical basis of this habit change that we're cultivating, because it's not just about thinking good thoughts and wishing good wishes. It's really about restructuring, rewiring, and realigning our mind, our body, our brain with a path that lets us move forward in a healthier way. We have to also bring to bear that physical structure, that physical body that we occupy to help put us in the position for that future to come to pass. We talked about the role of mind, which is different than the brain itself. You can think of the mind as the conductor and the brain in some ways as the orchestra. It's the mind that's directing the players, the neurons in the brain to work together to play a particular piece, to go in a particular direction. So we spent a little time on day one talking about the importance of linking together brain and mind. Another aspect of the world of is to begin to really think of our world, to think of our life as an unfolding adventure, a journey, and what I'm calling it here, a quest. It's an idea that comes from the Middle Ages, that we come into this world with a purpose, and it's our lifelong quest to fulfill that purpose. So here we talk about that in terms of our request to align ourselves with our purpose, with our passion, with our dreams, to act in ways that help them come true, whether we are beginning that quest in our 30s or 40s, our 50s, our 60s, and as is the case with many of my clients, in their 70s and 80s and even beyond that. And finally, the idea of restoring. To restore something means to bring it back so that it is in its original form. But that doesn't mean that you are going back to who you were. The work that we're helping you do puts you back in touch with your original resources, not the way you used them in the past, but puts you in touch with them so that you're fully restored and ready to utilize the resources you already have in directions, in ways to pursue possibilities that you may not have recognized were actually available to you. So we spent a fair amount of time on day one talking about those 10 forms of and again, I encourage you to go back to day one, revisit them, because they're going to be important for you long after you complete this 7-day challenge. It's really important to begin to think of yourself as on that quest, on that journey. And any of you who have ever done hiking or done any other kind of outdoor work, you know you have to chart your course. You have to be able to have a sense of where you want to end up to have any chance of getting there. You don't just start aimlessly walking in a particular direction and hope that you arrive where you want to go. Charting a course is really important. It's important not only from the perspective of looking ahead to where you want to end up, it also involves periodically reviewing your progress, looking back. As I understand it, and this isn't something I've done, but if you're out in the wilderness and you're using a compass, you take a look at it, you sight off into the distance, look again at the compass to see the direction you want to head, and then you look down and begin to walk. You don't walk with your head in the compass. And you don't only walk with your eyes fixed on that destination, because it may well go in and out of sight depending on the terrain that you're walking over. You go back and forth looking at where you want to end up when that's visible, and then at other times checking to make sure that you're on track, and periodically making course corrections until you eventually reach where you want to go. The key, of course, is consistency. One foot in front of the other, day by day, practice by practice, skill by skill, failure following triumph, triumph following failure, all the while learning from your experience and staying the course. I can't emphasize that enough. With people that I work with who come in, especially with depressive patterns, where there's a loss of energy, a loss of hope, a loss of belief in the future, one of the things that's really common, even if you don't have major depression, is that you give up too quickly. So this idea of charting your course presumes that there are going to be times when you feel defeated. It assumes that there are going to be times when you go off course. But it also assumes that you're going to be able to pick yourself up from that detour, and with the courage of your convictions, with the courage of the skills that you've been working these past few days to begin putting into practice, you can once again put one foot in front of the other and begin walking again toward that imagined future. I've talked about it over these last 6-7 days, but I'll mention it again right now. In order to get where you want to go, it's really important to intersperse activity and high energy times with other times that are quiet, that are inward looking, that are self-reflective, times when you can shut down, when you can settle in and settle down, because in those quiet times, you're actually giving your body's biology the opportunity to work with your experience, to put it together in new ways, to actually discharge or discard what hasn't worked, and to really reinforce those seeds of possibility for what can work so much better. That happens best when we're regularly practicing quiet, reflective, meditative times. It's actually what also happens while we're sleeping, especially during dream states. So think of a 24-hour day as a day that's punctuated by times when you're physically energized and active, doing and seeking. But we get to our destination best if we counterbalance those more active times with other periods of time and other practices that are designed for self-development and self-reflection. It's a way for you to really become acquainted with your thoughts and feelings. It gives you an opportunity to begin to observe in those quieter times. What are the thoughts or feelings that rise up? What are the thoughts and feelings that begin to fall away? What are the thoughts and feelings, what are the perspectives that you can begin to discard as you make room for some new ideas and some new possibilities? Essentially, what I'm inviting you to do is to build into your day the ability to do 4 different things. To learn to observe, to learn to notice, to really key into what it is that you're observing, to learn to accept, so that we're not always defending ourselves against things that are uncomfortable or anxiety-provoking or disappointing. They're also part of life, and the more we're able to accept the tough with the good, the more resilient we become, the more emotionally and mentally flexible we become able to be. When we practice observing, noticing, and accepting, what we're actually doing is starting to instill into our neurobiology, into the neural networks of our brain, a much more flexible and adaptable you. And that's clearly a foundation for helping you get where it is that you want to go next. And lastly, repeat, repeat, and repeat. I can't emphasize it enough. There's nothing I can offer or that I've ever read that anyone else can offer that can be like a magic pill or a magic bullet. What we're talking about is the kind of skills that we hope will carry us through a lifetime measured in many, many decades. It's not going to be something that we go to sleep one night and wake up the next morning with everything being okay. So this idea of persistence, repeated practice, is so critically important to helping you get where you want to go. Lastly, this is a little different take, not just on this idea of having reflective, quiet time. It's also about having the opportunity to pause during the day. We're all designed with an ability to respond to what triggers us. But the trouble is, if the time between the stimulus and the response is too short, we live our lives as though all we're able to do is react. It's like all we have are reflexes, but we want to go beyond those reflexes. And one step in that direction is learning how to be reflective. That's a slower process. It puts a little bit more space between the stimulus and the response. But we want to go even further. We want to really enlarge the space between something that happens to us and our ability to respond to it thoughtfully with good deliberation. When we're really able to do that, it shifts us just from being actors in our lives to actually becoming the authors that direct ourselves as the actor. So we become both the author and the actor rather than just the actor, or maybe we should say just the reactor in our lives. And of course, doing that over time requires a lot of courage, because on a day-to-day basis there's always that fear. What if it doesn't work? What if we fail? What if what we're attempting isn't enough? So learning to pause is a really important ingredient in helping us develop the courage to stay the course as we pursue our goals in the future. So this is kind of a summary here. I'm inviting you all to practice getting into the creative flow of your life. It's very much about this tension, this tug of war between seeking connection with others and then developing times when we're going to practice being alone with ourselves. I've heard it said, and I've certainly found that to be the case with my clients, if you can't be comfortable, at peace with, and even have a sense of joy being alone with yourself, it's really hard for you to enjoy deeply your connections to others. So learn to go back and forth between connecting to others and then developing deeper connections to yourself. There are going to be setbacks along the way. We know that. Learn to pay attention to those changes. Learn how, in the midst of any setback, there's always a seed of hope that can be used to learn from that setback as you get yourself back in the game. What we're talking about are the kind of skills that help you develop fearless realism, the ability to be optimistic and but not in the usual sense of that word, where we sometimes think that we're wearing rose-colored glasses. Fearless realism-based optimism is about learning to be in the world as it is, with the good and the bad, and in that place still be able to find the courage to be optimistic. That's ultimately my goal in helping you move forward with your life. It's also important, if we're going to help you develop an ageless life, that you remember how important it is to be playful. We're all so easily put into patterns of habits and routines where our life becomes more and more structured and more predictable. And often, especially as we get older, we lose the kind of spontaneity that is so characteristic of playfulness in childhood. There's really no reason why we can't be as playful at 80 as we were at 8. It's a question of cultivating those skills of playfulness, curiosity, and creativity that really revive, refresh, and revitalize you regardless of your age. And finally, it's so important when you do that, with that renewed playfulness and energy, you really put yourself in a position to be that author of your life, to recognize that the final chapter has not yet been written. So this 7-day challenge that we're winding up is really just an introduction. It's, you might say, an appetizer. It's like a week at a spa. You go off to Canyon Ranch, you feel absolutely wonderful, and then you return to your day-to-day life. The key isn't that you had the opportunity to go to the spa. It's, did you learn something during your week there that you can carry forward in your life going forward? So again, I'm leaving you with these kind of questions to build on as we bring our 7-day challenge together to a close. Ask yourself, what's the path that you're on? What is the end point that you're seeking? What kind of support are you getting for yourself to help keep you going for those times when you feel a little bit deflated or defeated? And also, what are the resources that you have within you that you've begun to discover that you can continue to draw on to see yourself as absolutely resourceful or resourceful? Because when you do, then you don't have to keep looking elsewhere for what you already carry inside of you, that in my view, with practice and the cultivation of proper skills, what you already have inside of you is more than enough to help you get to where it is that you want to go. Thank you again for joining me over the course of the week. I'll be happy to answer any comments that you put onto the site so that I can share them directly with you and with other members of the community. And I look forward to sharing new material with you as we all go forward together. Thank you once again, and for now, bye-bye.